Okay. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Firefighter Book Club. And today we're going to be hanging out with Renick Sampson. We're going to be discussing his book, The Game. And just wanted to kind of throw this out since this is the last meeting of 2021. I started working on the reading list for 2022. So if your significant other has not bought you a book for Christmas yet, here is the list, so you can try to kind of put it in their ear to get you a book for Christmas, because reading is definitely a part of this whole thing. That's why the book club exists. So we already kind of threw this out January. We're going to be doing Crossfire, Taking the Heat Out of Conflict for Company Officers by Randy Kern. Great book. Randy's actually helped me a lot with my book, Strategies and Tactics for Employee Fires. So we're going to have Randy on for January. We already got that one figured out because it was coming up quick. But people I've already talked to set up the reading list for next year. We got Rick Lasky for Pride and Ownership. We got John Norman discussing his new book, Working with Giants. Les Carpluck from Canada. He's going to be having his book, Purpose-Filled Leadership. And we've thrown this out a couple times. If you need his book, they don't ship to the U.S., so I ordered 24 of them here at Red Helmet Training. You can order them directly through me if you can't get a hold of it some other way. Richard Gassaway is going to be doing one of his situational awareness books, Situational Awareness to Improve Safety. He's also going to give us a discount code to get you guys a discounted copy, and he's going to autograph those for everybody. Tommy Dunn from FDNY. A book club member already. He's got his book, Notes from the Fireground, discussing some stuff from FDNY and 9/11. And Ryan Pennington has got his book, Hoarder Homes. I think his second edition should hopefully come out this year. So we're going to look at actually fighting fires and piles of hazards, as he always talks about with Hoarder Homes. Judith Glick Smith, we're going to look at her book. It's kind of a doctor level, but flow-based leadership. So flow-based leadership, I've read that. It's great stuff. Just talked to Jason Hobelman the other day regarding his book, The New Fire Officer. So I think he's going to be able to do that. And we're trying to throw a tactics book in there every once in a while. Like I said, we got the Hoarder Homes. And I talked to Nicholas Papa the other day about his new book, Coordinating Ventilation. And then I will see Nick Brunacini hopefully next month or in February. To do an episode of Firefighters and Fire Trucks Getting Ice Cream. And I'm going to try to get him to come on and discuss his book, Bee Shifter, because that one will just be a lot of fun. So that's kind of the reading list. That's 10 books. I got 2 more things up my sleeve. We'll see if they pan out. If not, I got some other contacts. But get one of those books for Christmas, and it'll save you some heartache later on. Like I said, so this is Randy's book for next month. If you haven't gotten it yet, or if you want an autographed copy, DM me or email me. I can still get it to you probably in time, and then you have time to read it. That one's January 3rd, I believe that we're doing that one, or January 6th. So, okay, so that's the reading list for 2022 so far. Hopefully, I'm doing you guys a solid and getting you some really good authors and really good books on the list. So let's turn it over to Renick here and discuss his book, The Game, and talk about the Rookie's Manual for Success here. So, hey, Renick.
Hey, Jesse. How's it going? Hey, everybody.
Good. So first off, let's start talking about you wrote this book when you were actually an engineer, correct?
I did, yes. Yeah,
that's correct. And just recently promoted a captain?
I did, yeah, about a year ago.
So when you were writing this book, how did this all come to fruition?
So it kind of came around, I like to call it very organically. Like I never intended to write a book. The funny thing was at the time we had just expanded our ambulance operator program. We were hiring a ton of new rookie firefighters. And I was also in charge of our volunteer auxiliary firefighter program. So with those 3 factors in our department, we were getting a huge number of turnover and fresh faces, some green employees coming through. And I realized that, everybody was continuously making the same mistakes. And I kind of thought about that for a while, and for my program, the auxiliary program, we had a document. It was like, you know, probably every department has it, but the top 25 things either to do or not to do on your first day. And so I was passing that out, and I was like, this thing's kind of outdated. Like, I'm gonna try to update it for my program. And so I just took a pad of paper and I started writing down, you know, ideas throughout. You know, it started out just, I was just gonna make a new list, and I created over the year about a list of about 300 things that I was trying to get out to people. And I was like, this is not going to work. Like, this is ridiculous. So I was like, okay, what do I need to do here? So I started breaking it down into like digestible chunks, I guess, and like organizing it. And then from there, basically, I had organized it into like 5 different sections, right? And so that made sense. And then I was like, okay, well, you can't just give somebody a list of that many things and expect results. So I was like, I'm going to start trying to like explain a little bit of each one. And then basically that took me about, and I wasn't doing this 8 hours a day every day, you know. So basically what happened is it started to format into a book. And I showed some people at work. I showed my wife, and they're all like, this is actually really cool. Like, it makes a lot of sense. And so then from there I was like, okay, well, I'm just gonna like go online and see if I can find an editor or somebody who would be interested in taking a look at it. And I got in touch with they're from England, but she was an ex-firefighter and her husband is a firefighter over there. And she's like, oh, I'd love to take a look at that. So she took a look at it, edited the heck out of it, and she's like, I have a friend who's actually a book designer. And so basically the book was in just like a Word document form. And then I go, okay, well, let's see what happens. So I sent it out. She basically took it, sent it back to me in a book format. And I was like, wow, I just wrote a book. So it kind of like just happened. And my intent was basically just to get it out to as many people as I can. I know the audience for this is going to be, you know, people who are just getting into the fire service. And so I just wanted to get it out to as many people as I could. So threw it out on Amazon, did some Instagram marketing, if you will. And next thing I knew, it was rolling pretty good. And I honestly, if you had asked me 5 years ago, I would have said, no way, I'll never write a book. And then it just kind of came from necessity. Like I was thinking about it, and you know, in the book I talk about how you know, the fire academies train you, your training cadre train you for like fire ground tactics, but there's no real like there's no real book at the time that taught you what you were getting into if you didn't have firehouse experience. That's the key, is like this is for people who, I mean, it's for everybody, but it's designed for the people who don't have a lot of firehouse experience coming in and having the knowledge on day one that you would normally probably have on like month 6. So it gives you a good start. And then, not to keep going on, but I also, somebody came up to me the other day and they're like, this is an awesome book because I knew what I was getting into, but I gave it to my family, and now they totally understand what I'm going through my probation, and it helped me out, you know, a ton, because now I have the understanding of my family, my wife, my kids, everybody's on the same page, and it really helped out. So that was kind of cool to hear, you know, it's an added benefit, I guess.
Yeah, just to understand how busy they are and what they got to go through to get through probation. And you really
Absolutely.
just have to tell your family, just like you tell them, like, it's just 1 year. I just got to get through this year, and then we can move from there.
Yeah.
And amazingly enough, like a lot of the books that you see out there, fire service books, I've interviewed several people now, and it kind of started out as the same way. It started out as notes, and they were just kind of writing down stuff, or it's a class that they've been teaching, and they kind of just rotated into a book. And there's a lot of members in the book club that are authors or future authors that are coming out. So before we get into the book itself, what's some of the stuff that you found as far as the normal author stuff they talk about, writer's block or formatting or stuff that just drove you nuts or whatever?
So all of those. I had a healthy dose of everything that negative probably that you could imagine. But yeah, writer's block. Like to show you how I was not planning on writing a book. I did the entire thing on an iPad. So because I never expected it to continue on, and it just kept rolling. And it worked. So yeah, writer's block. I would go through. I think the hardest part for me was I would kind of become blind to what I was writing, and what I mean by that is like I would edit it so many times that it was just like not what I was seeing on the page, but was what I was actually like intending to put on the page in my mind. I was seeing that instead of what was actually on the page. So when I sent it out to editor, it was kind of eye-opening to get it back with all the red lines on it. You know, I was like, oh yeah, okay, yeah, that's all. Yeah, obviously, you know. So it went through quite a few rounds, and I actually switched right before it and got a second one, an editor, to just go over it one time, because the first one had gone through it so many times. I didn't want there to be mistakes that she missed too. So yeah, it came out pretty good. Yeah. And then as far as other things like yeah, I don't there was writer's block. There was my biggest, I won't call it fear, but concern was that and like I said, I only intended to do this for my program. So anything else, my goal was if I could get one honest review from somebody who I didn't know, then that was like a win for me. So but my concern was that it wasn't going to translate to other departments, right? Like our department, perfect for. Everybody else, yeah, I don't know. Just throw it out there and see what happens. And it's got a really good I mean, I have people from New York, Canada. I've sold copies to, you know, Australia. I'm in contact with a guy from Israel who heads up their training for the Israeli fire service. So it's definitely proof that the fire service is, what do they say, like, you know, different circus and clowns or something like that. You hear that?
Yeah. And the big thing about it is, I mean, there's a ton of stuff that's the same in our department. There's only a few things on there I was like, okay, that's a little different than us, but for the most part, everybody understands the concepts, you know.
Yeah, and like, yeah, it's a general, like, there's a section in there that, you know, goes over the schedule. Obviously the schedule is going to be different for every department, so some of it is very like, you know, take it with a grain of salt. Obviously see what your department is, and and go with your policies and procedures, obviously, you know. So it's but it is all good information, and information can't hurt you, you know, so.
Yeah. Well, and it comes down to, like, as that rookie firefighter, you got to learn the culture of that department that you're working for. Like, this Absolutely. Is the baseline, but it's all about culture. I mean, that's what it's Absolutely. All about with this. That's the easiest way to get in trouble. It's the you know, going to calls and dealing with that kind of stuff. But really, a lot of times what it comes down to is, he just doesn't fit in. She doesn't get it, or whatever. And and the quantifying that as a company officer, that's the hardest part sometimes. Is I still got to document, like, well, what don't they get? Well, they just don't get it. It's like, well, what don't they get? You have to be able to do that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's and then yeah, just like you said, quantifying, like, what is it that they don't get? Well, you know, do you have a standard for that? So it gets tricky. Yeah.
And now you're living that now as a captain, right?
Yeah.
Like, if I was going to say when you do a second edition, I was going to say when you do a second edition, what's some of the stuff that, like, has even come to your mind that it's like, hey, there's completely different stuff or more stuff I got to add now that I'm in that captain seat?
Well, you know, I've had people call like joking around, like they say, oh, the first edition was the game. What's the second going to be, like Jaded or something? You know, so I I've gotten like, oh, you should do one for family members. You know, for the Firewives. I was like, I don't know what it's like to be a firewife. Like, I mean, I understand it, but I haven't lived that. So, yeah, some of the things like. You know, I had a list a while back on things I was gonna do on the second edition, but I haven't. Just trying to get through my first year of being a captain. That's some of those kind of slipped my mind, but yeah, mostly like you know, what, for example, I'm also part of our peer support team, so there's a lot of like mental health stuff that goes into it that that you know I don't touch on in here. I mean, the list is endless. You know, I can keep going, but yeah, I haven't given it.
Well, and it's funny anytime you work with like new officers or somebody that's coming into it, or like in an oral interview, right? You ask a prospective company officer, like, what is your role when it comes to a rookie firefighter on probation? And amazingly, you always get that answer like, well, my job is to make sure they pass probation. It's like, well, yes, that's kind of your job, but your job is also to, if they're not cutting it, to document or coach or counsel, you know, and it's always, if that's what you think that your job is as a company officer with the probie, is just, well, to make them pass, you're going to be in for a rude awakening when you have one that is not going to pass or struggling or whatever.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So let's get into some of the stuff with the book. And you said you broke it down into those 5 sections, and obviously you can see that in the book now. You know, it's kind of a way to chunk that up. So the first one we're talking about is character, right? Obviously the biggest thing in the fire service. You know, you lie, you die. All those types of things that we talk about. Easiest way for your new crew to, even if they're not getting rid of you and firing you, it's the easiest way for you to become shunned from your crew and ignored and stuff like that. So what's some of the biggest stuff that you look at as far as character in the book?
So from the book, like, obviously integrity, right? Because you're not going to want to be, as a probationary firefighter, you don't want to be babysat, and as a captain, I don't want to babysit you. So I need you to do what you say you're going to do, and what you think is right, all the time. So I don't want to be questioning, you know, is that going to get done? Is it not going to get done? I do sometimes check up on it because I want to make sure everything obviously is going correctly, and that, you know, I don't have to make any documentation, but mostly integrity, and then also understanding that your like your reputation will spread so fast, you know, whether it's good or bad, it's going to be, you know, there's no stopping it. Everybody gets a reputation. So you want to make sure that you're on the right track, and you're creating a good name for yourself, and sometimes that's hard to do. You know, sometimes if, you know, you make one small mistake in the beginning, it's hard to overcome that. So first impressions are definitely huge, and yeah, that's probably the main parts of a character. I mean, you can't. That's why this book I felt was so important, is because it kind of lets you start off on the right foot, right? Like, you don't have to worry about going in and having zero idea of what you're doing and creating a bad reputation for yourself. Even if you've never spent a day in the firehouse, you can go in there and have a working base knowledge of what you're supposed to be doing. Right? Like, for example, my very first interview, I was like barely 18. The first question they asked me is, what's the job of a firefighter? And I was like, well, you know, like, what, actually they said, what is the morning routine of a firefighter? And I said, well, I'd come in and I'd make sure my equipment was squared away, and then I'd wait for a call to come in. You know, and I was like, I thought that was a great answer, but it's just because I didn't know. and it just, yeah, it just, your reputation, it will make your life much easier if you start out on the right foot. So
Yeah. Well, and even just understanding, like for my department, we're very large. So we're bringing them on, 20 to 30 at a time, at my previous department, when we would hire, it's funny, we'd always bring them on in twos. And no matter what, one guy was awesome and one guy was a piece of crap, even if he was, but that's how it always went down. Like we labeled, like, look, one of you is going to be a piece of crap. You guys figure out which one it's going to be. And you have to uphold that, and that integrity is going to be that first part. I had a firefighter that literally was just a habitual liar, and it was just over small stuff. The other shift ordered a filter for the ice machine from Home Depot, and I guess it was out of stock. So it comes in while my shift is on. Home Depot calls the fire station and says, "Hey, we got your water filter in." Like, okay, we'll come down and grab it. So we kept popping calls, we're running, and then finally we get down there after dinner to pick up this ice machine water filter. So the next morning, and of course, this probationary firefighter, I've already had a couple of talks with him about time management during the day and stuff like that. So the following morning, we're going off shift, and I said, "Hey, did you get the ice machine filter put in?" And something that would take 5 minutes, but we were busy, And even if you didn't, it's like it's no big deal. But I asked him, "Hey, did you get the water filter changed out?" "No, sir, I haven't gotten it changed out." And I was like, "Okay, no big deal. Just make sure you turn it over the next shift." And he goes, "No, I'll do it before I leave." I'm like, "Okay, that's no problem. Just make sure it's handled right." So whatever, he's doing some reports before he leaves and whatever, he doesn't end up doing it. He hides it in his locker, right? Well, the shift that came on is the shift that ordered it. The purchase order is sitting on my desk, so the captain knows I picked it up. So, of course, that captain goes and tells this firefighter, like, "Hey, the water filter came in. Find out if it got installed or whatever, because I don't know anything about it." So this firefighter looks around, doesn't find it, can tell that it's the old one still on there because the light is blinking that it needs to be changed, tries to call this firefighter. All this kind of stuff goes on. And, of course, the following shift, he comes back on, and the captain hits me up. And they're like, "Hey, your guy didn't put the water filter in, and we can't find it." So I bring him in. I'm like, "Hey," and he's like, "Oh, well, I called him and told him that where it was." And like literally, we're like trying to catch you in a lie and deal with this stuff, small little petty stuff.
That type of stuff is so frustrating. So frustrating.
Just get it done. And
exactly.
And like you said, you as a company officer, like, I don't have time to be going around and checking on you all the time. I expect that you're doing what you need to do and getting projects done. But you do, as a company officer, sometimes have to go and do that management by walking around. It's crazy.
You have to. You have to. I'm learning that you have to be everywhere at all times. It's tricky to do.
Yeah. Well, there's a great theory that you should look up. There's a video that you can watch, and this management theory is by none other than David Lee Roth from Van Halen. So you can look this up, right? It's called the Brown Eminem theory. Have you ever heard of that?
No.
So the Brown Eminem theory is when Van Halen was touring the country and doing all these big, mega, huge concerts back in the day, right? And their concerts were like 10 times the size of anybody else at the time when Van Halen was coming around with the producer. And so Van Halen, in their big contract rider, they would always squeeze in, like what they want as far as in the green room for snacks. We want yogurt, we want this. And there was also a thing in there that talks about we want a 10-pound bag of M&Ms put in a big glass bowl, right? Yeah. Well, then 7 pages later, somewhere in the contract, it would say, "And in the bowl of M&Ms, we want no brown M&Ms found in there," right? And they purposely did this as a thing, like, look, to find out, did the contract writer, the person that was actually putting the concert stuff together, did they actually read this? Because if they found brown M&Ms in the backstage area, then they would have to go do a line check of the entire place. Like, look, there could be safety hazards because this was not followed to the T. You didn't read it all. So
Yeah.
it's one of those things. Like sometimes I'm going around the station just looking for these brown M&Ms that are missing. It's a great thing, and it's funny too because on the YouTube video it's David Lee Roth telling the story, so it's definitely fun. But
yeah, I love that guy.
So the other thing about character, right? You talked about the integrity and all that kind of stuff. You also talk about being excited, right?
Yes.
It's very hard for the fire service to be a drain on a new guy. Calls are going on, and they're like, "Oh my God, another call!" And you can't do that, right? As a rookie, right?
No, that would be a pretty quick way to dig yourself in a hole for sure. Yeah, and so by being excited, what I just thought about it, and it's, you get somebody in there, and you want. When I was new, I was excited to be there. You got your whole career ahead of you. Everything's looking up. Like you finally landed this job or this position, and you just think like, okay, from my perspective now, if someone's not excited to be there, then I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me, and it leaves definitely a. People want to help you. People want to help people who want kind of the same thing, right? You can see yourself in somebody else. So if you come in and you're excited and you're doing the right thing and you're trying to learn and you're trying to do the right thing, I've always found that people are, excited to help you. They want to help you. They want to see you do well. If you come in with a negative attitude and you're like, another call, we were just at that, that convalescent home, whatever, and people are going to be like, dude, you've been here for 2 months and you're already complaining? Like, what's this guy going to be like in 20 years? So I think being excited is definitely an important part of your character when you get there. Even if you're not excited, I mean, just pretend like you are, really. But how could you not be? How could you not be excited? I don't get it. I still get excited. So I don't know.
We were coming back from a call the other day, and I'm just like looking out the window at the landscape going by, and I got this big smile on my face. And my engineer looks over, he's like, "What are you smiling at?" I go, "I don't know, man. We get to do this job. We get to go take care of people and cruise around a big red truck. And like, how could you not just smile?" But sometimes as a company officer, like, you're getting a rookie. You almost have to like get your crew together at the kitchen table before, like, look, I know that you guys, every time the tones go off, you yell bullshit at the speakers. You guys just knock that off for 5 months or 6 months, however long. We want him to have a love for the job, right? We want him to start off fresh. And your guys' bad attitudes are influencing that guy.
Yeah.
You almost have to do that. Like, look.
So funny thing about yelling bullshit at the speakers is my station. Often one of the corners is our dispatch area. So sometimes you'll hear over the dispatch people in the background going, "Oh God, what, this place again, bullshit," So we have to kind of watch it at my station. But that's funny. Yeah, we've had that happen before.
Well, and like you said, you're going to see your crew out there helping. Your rookie firefighters are excited that want the job, right? So it's pretty amazing. Like usually this is if I get a rookie that's in the back half of their probation, they should kind of already know the game a little bit.
Yes, it's for sure.
It's one of the things like I'll do if for like the first month, I might be planning you call them company school, but for us it's mini drills, right? I might plan out the mini drills that I want them to do. Hey, I need you to give one on the 4-gas monitor. I need you to give one on the thermal imaging camera. But amazingly enough, I purposely do this about a month or 2 months into it. I will stop telling them what to do, and I will stop like, "Hey, where's your mini drill? What time are we doing at?" And I'll stop managing them. And then what you'll see is, and I'll pretend like I'm too busy to like deal with them, right? Hey, I got a project I got going on, figure it out. And then it gets to the point where 3 shifts will go by and they haven't given a mini drill because they let that stuff go on, right? I will purposely do that to make sure that they understand, like, look, this is not my probation. This is your probation.
Yeah, this is yours to manage. Right. Yeah.
And the other one is they expect like the crew to go out there and pull hose with them and tie knots with them. And eventually
Right.
I tell the crew, like, look, don't go out there and like force them to go out there. When
Yeah.
you see that they're out there throwing ladders by themselves or pulling hose by themselves, then go out and help. But
Yeah.
I don't want you to be the one that like is mandating like, hey, at this time, we're going to go out and pull hose.
Right.
Let them figure it out. And I
Oh,
want to
yeah, absolutely.
eventually I
And
want to see
that's,
a crew be out there by themselves loading their own hose. You know?
yeah. Yeah. And I mean, that's one of those things that they should at some point, like you're saying, take ownership of their probation. I mean, in the beginning, I think it's kind of hard because they're new and they're nervous and they're trying to, figure out, everything all at the same time. But yeah, I agree about the 6-month mark. They should be able to pull that down for sure.
Yeah. Last one you talk about in the character one is cell phone usage, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, huge right now.
So that one there, it has probably, I've had more, okay, so the coffee, which I've gotten a lot of comments on, but the cell phone usage is also, I mean, that one I think is a obviously universal, like red flag, right? I mean, the cell phones are like, okay, I had a brand new probationary firefighter, and we were in a class, and the battalion chief kind of snuck in afterwards because he was busy doing something else, and he was sitting down behind this guy. I don't think he knew he was there, and he was like, pulled me aside. The chief pulled me aside afterwards and was like, "You got to talk to this guy. He was on his phone the entire class. He had it on his thigh, down there, like looking and typing and stuff. And I don't think anybody noticed, but the chief snuck in behind him, and he started with his reputation with that. It's hard to overcome. And like so I have kids, and I always tell my kids, like, it's one of those things. It's like, it's not a problem until you make it a problem, right? Like, if you had a probationary firefighter in the back of the rig and he had his cell phone there, and it was on it very rarely, just if his wife texted him or whatever, just shot a quick text back, I don't think it would be a big issue. I really don't. I think there's a lot of points where your cell phone could be helpful. Like, if we're responding to an incident and our map program doesn't pull up, or the engineer can't place, or it's out of district or something, hey, pull up this address on your phone. Okay, yeah, no problem. They are helpful. They're no doubt, but it's when you're checking your Instagram on every single call on the way back, it becomes a problem. Like, that's not your job. Your job isn't to sit back there, and your job is to be asking questions as a rookie. Your job is to be wondering, like, okay, if I ask you, hey, how deep is that lot? How many lengths of hose do you think it would take to get back there? Like, what are we doing operationally if that third unit goes up? What are we doing on that industrial complex? Those are all questions that you should be asking yourself and having a conversation on the way back from calls, not just sitting there checking your fantasy football and stuff like that. So that is an issue, and it's a universal issue for sure. I've heard all over the place people that's the big problem right now.
Yeah. Well, and you got to remember, like in the original fire service, there was like a certain time, almost like prison, like, hey, 7 p.m., you're a rookie, you get to call home and tell your wife that you're okay and that you love her and get back to work,
Yeah. We used to have the kiddie phone, which was just a pay phone on the wall, and that would ring, and everybody, the rookie or whoever, the youngest person, would run to the phone to answer it, and then they'd go track down whoever his wife was calling. And
Right.
I don't know, it's definitely, we don't have that anymore, so it's changed. But
Yeah.
not everything changes. You just got to adapt and make sure you're not making an idiot out of yourself.
Well, that's the hardest part. I mean, we all know those things are mini computers. They take pictures and video, and you can definitely get yourself in a lot of trouble.
Real quick.
Yeah. So station duties, right? Obviously, you're not going to be running calls the entire shift you're there, and staying busy is going to be huge, right?
Yeah.
So I think that you break it down kind of like we do. We have daily routine, we have weekly routine where you hit something, the kitchen or whatever, really hard, and then we have monthly duties. But it's getting past that, right? It's like, okay, well, I've done the dailies. Now what, right? So what's some of the other advice you have as far as like cleaning for effect as a rookie?
Well, so the daily duties are like to me, as when I was on probation, they were always important because a little bit of background on me. I worked on in the oil fields for about 8 years before I got hired. I was a floor hand on an oil rig. So there was never any downtime. Like the guy I worked for, ex-military, hardcore, he'd been doing it his whole life, post-military, and he would break you off. And if it's different working in a private industry because especially in the oil service, like if those things aren't pumping up and down, they're not making money. And the guy who's paying for that crew to be there, if they're not working on making his pumping units go up and down, then they better be doing something because you're getting paid for it. And so, I mean, it was constant. If you weren't busy, he would absolutely light you up. So I kind of learned early on that, that in your downtime is when you can make a good, you can really prove your work ethic in your downtime. And so it's a huge point of pride that if all the house chores are done and you're not studying, it's not study time, because you have to split your time between many things. But when it's time, or the battalion chief comes through your station and he's looking around, he's like, what's going on with this place? Like it's not up to par, and you're sitting there doing something else, then all the eyes basically go on you. You're under a microscope there. So you gotta do your stuff, and then you gotta do a little extra. Like I talk about in here, like things that you can do after the fact, like extras, for those times where you have downtime, like and a lot of the different departments do different things, so you got to fill in your own blanks. But like as far as I know, one of the big things for us was like the air conditioning vents, right? Like it's one of those things that are just overlooked. You've got, you walk around, look up at your air conditioning vents, and they're black, and they've got black streaks going 10 feet down the ceiling from blowing dust for years, and the walls are dirty around them. And like those are things people notice. Handrails, flat surfaces, is the underneath your monitor. And then I talk about kind of being held accountable for it. When I was on probation, is my captain would go and like sprinkle change around the station, and he'd be like, behind the doors, to make sure you vacuum behind the doors. It's kind of like the brown Eminem thing, right? He was just checking up on me. But he'd come back to me and be like, how much change did you find today? And he would know how much he put out. So if you were way off, he'd go, well, you better make another round type thing. So
right.
Those are all just little things. There's a few more in here that aren't coming to me right now, but I was always so this is kind of a funny story. I was always a hard worker, but I'm not someone who is like, I don't have much showmanship about it, So there were some times where people would be like, I didn't even know you were at the station today. And I was like, oh, that's because I was out in the back garage, like cleaned out everything, reorganized everything, swept out underneath all the stuff, Then spent a whole day working and nobody even knew it. And then there was the guy who would always be washing the captain's, office windows. And so there's a little bit of like, you got to work hard, but you also got to make sure that, I don't want to say you want to show off about it, but it's kind of showmanship a little bit. You gotta make yourself seen and have a personality and get people to buy in on you while you're doing all this. So it's definitely a balance.
Yeah, because then it gets to the point where if you're like going around, you're like, well, I painted this today and I cleaned that today. They're going to be like, all right. You don't have to tell us everything that you're
exactly doing. Yeah. You don't want to. You're not. Yeah. My thought was I'm not there to be showy about it. I'm not there to, as a probationary firefighter, you're not there to be one of the guys yet. You're there to work, and hopefully that happens, naturally over time. So
yeah, go out
I'd
there,
say,
get the
like,
hand tools sharpened, paint the hand tools so they know.
yeah,
You want to find projects that they'll notice, but at the same time, it's still stuff that's worth your time, and it's going to make the department better. Like
absolutely.
even as a captain now, like we don't have any daily duties on Sunday. Hey, it's the
Yeah.
day of rest. I totally get it. And just recently, I took that daily list, and on Sundays, I put spend 1 hour making it better. Like it's not like a daily thing, but Sundays you should still spend an hour doing something.
Yeah.
And I said after that you can go watch football, or before that you can watch football. Just give me 1 hour of something today.
Something. Yeah.
Right.
That's perfect. Yeah.
And it's funny too. Like you talked about like leaving the toilet water blue. It's like, hey, and
Yeah.
sometimes these guys now they're folding the toilet paper up like you talked about it.
Yeah, they started doing that too.
It's just so annoying, dude. Like a third of the toilet paper roll is like wet because they wet it too much, and then it's like with their initials like wet all the way through the toilet paper. Like, great, you guys are doing great. And we had some of that toilet cleaner that was like actually like really caustic too.
Oh.
So you leave it in the toilet bowl, it's one thing, but they're leaving stuff in the urinal, and it's like literally like taking the enamel off of this thing. Like you guys can't just leave that stuff in the toilet all the time. You're supposed to just clean it and rinse it. It says right here on the directions. Yeah, it's so funny. They're trying to clean stuff to that immaculate level and damaging it. So
yeah, we had a lot. So we just got a couple new stations, and which super grateful for. But right when COVID hit, so all of our brand new, like the surfaces, the stainless, everything. Sorry, just 1 second. I had my dog behind me, and my wife just got home, so I had to pass her off. Sorry about that.
I'd see the dog every once in a while. The tail would come up,
Yeah, that one. I have 2 dogs. That's our little one, and if she's not right with you, she would just be scratching at the door and everything. So it was much easier to just put her behind me. But yeah, I'm sorry. Oh yeah, okay. So like you're saying, I mean, it's kind of like ruined everything because of all the bleach cleaner wipes and everything, So I don't know.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Well, teaching guys how to clean properly. I mean, it's huge. Like because I've had it before. Like literally, I painted the hand tools today, and it's like, well, you painted them wrong, so now we got to take all that off and start all over. And yeah,
we've had people sharpen axes to the point where you could shave with them. I mean, they were absolutely razor sharp. I was like, holy crap! Like, what are you like? Ah! So, and then the other big one is I love it when people use the back of the squad mop in the kitchen. That's a good one. Yeah. So,
yeah.
Definitely got to know what you're.
Yeah, literally, we just have color codes on our mop handles, like yellow's for pee, and it's like you got the yellow mop, and then you got the other ones. You got the black mop for the apparatus bays, and then you still got, I think, a white for the kitchen or whatever. Shows you how often I touch some mops at the station, but I know the yellow one's the pee mop. I know that. So, so let's talk about testing, right? Like I said, you guys call it company school. We call it like a mini drill. Like you're supposed to put on a class for all of your crew. And we kind of teach like sums, which is pretty similar, right? Specifications, usage, maintenance, and safety stuff. But, you kind of break it down a little further than that. But tell us what some of the stuff that you've seen in, as far as company school stuff for you.
So company schools for me were probably the most difficult. I'm not super comfortable talking in front of public speaking type things, and to take like a chainsaw, for example, and break that down, and then try to explain this chainsaw and the tactics and what we would use it for, and where we keep it, and the maintenance, and the entirety of the chainsaw. And if you were to give a class on it, it wouldn't be, I mean, you'd get through it. You'd give your like in a classroom setting, right, to people who don't understand what a chainsaw is. Kind of give your thing, you answer some questions, they're taking notes. But to try to teach a chainsaw to a 30-year truck firefighter who has lived the chainsaw his entire career, that's a completely different beast, right? You're trying, I mean, if you try to just fudge on any sort of spec, or they'll call you out on it. And so that was, you know, if you could give a company school and not have any questions afterwards, you knew you absolutely ripped it, because they would, when I was doing it, they would always have questions for me that I didn't even know were questions, you know. And then you can't just say, oh, I don't know, you know. You always have to answer like, I'm not sure, but I'll get back to you, and then actually follow up on getting back to them, because they're going to be waiting for you to get back to them. So I would usually try to get back to them within 2 to 3 hours, definitely by the end of the shift. And if I didn't get back to them, then it was like, it wasn't always a direct like, hey, you didn't get back to me on that. But then they wouldn't talk to me for like 3 or 4 shifts, you know, and be like, what the heck happened? Like, this guy used to, like, he just cold shouldered me. Like, what am I doing? And then you go, oh yeah, so that's another way, you know, if people aren't talking to you, if they're not messing with you, you might want to start thinking like, okay, what did I do? Because that's definitely an indicator that you did something wrong. But yeah, so for me, the way I would do it, and not to, but basically, like, for example, if you're talking about a breathing apparatus, right? I would basically we would do like the who, what, where, when, right? And safety and maintenance. So, but the idea is for what I would do is that I would become like a particle there, right? How does it get put into the cylinder? Once it's in the cylinder, how does it travel? What each system or piece of that equipment that it touches, then you would go into, and it just gave me a way of like standardizing it, and I would be able to apply that like idea to pretty much any piece of equipment. So that kind of helped it out with just formatting it. And then once you understand the format of it, you kind of just throw in a different piece of equipment, and it takes a lot of the mystery out of it. So that's some advice I can give you on that.
Well, I mean, you have to, as a rookie, get used to it. I mean, we're doing 1 or 2 of those a shift, and sometimes every once in a while you're going to give them a spot drill just out of the blue, you know, and you definitely can't BS your way through it. I had a firefighter talking about all this stuff with the chainsaw, telling me exactly what the spark plug gap was, and I said, okay, well, how do you check the spark plug gap? Yeah, he had no clue how to check it. He could just tell me what the numbers were. And it's like memorization of that stuff. The facts of that are good, but you still got to know the mechanical aptitude behind it, obviously. And so that's the huge part. We had one of the rookies giving us a class on the Tempest blower, and right off the bat, you know, he talks about the history of Tempest, how it actually started out as a company that made fans for hot air balloons. Well, I didn't know that. So like right off the bat, we're like, okay, you're good, man. You obviously research, you know. So
you definitely did research.
Finding stuff like that will definitely help, you know. And you got a bunch of guys around, and nobody knew that's where Tempest started, was hot air balloons. And it's like, all right, your class is done as long as you're good from there, you know. But getting used to those mini drills or company schools.
And then the other thing I would recommend, and I know that like. We used to always do a printout, right? And then that was always good, because you'd hand the crew a printout of what you're going to go over, and then it kind of took some of the heat off of me, because I would be like, okay, well, you know, if somebody walks in late, then they can kind of look at it and go, okay, yeah, he covered that, or you know, it gives them something to walk away with. And it also gives them like, the trick about the handout though is that you have to actually know what you're going to be going off, because it tells them everything, and they want to hear it from you also. So you gotta know your template there. But now everybody's doing like PowerPoints, which is great. But one thing I found is that you can't just turn your back to the crew and read the PowerPoint, right? You have to know what your PowerPoint is and present it to them, showing that you've memorized some of it, right? It's not a crutch. I mean, you're not reading it off of there. You're presenting it to us. And the whole point of this whole thing is so that we know you know the information, right?
Right.
So if you're just reading it, it doesn't do anything for you.
Yeah. Well, you can take some great information and make it really boring with PowerPoint really quickly.
Yeah,
instructors.
for sure.
I do it as an instructor all the time, so I totally get that. All right, so let's talk about the big one, chow. Obviously, chow, right?
Yeah.
That's the best way to pass probation, right? If you know how to cook, we all know that.
Or the easiest way to fail probation.
Right. I know when I started as a probationary firefighter, like all I knew how to make was breakfast stuff. So when it was my day to cook, like every Tuesday, like the guys were like excited. They were like going around like, we're having breakfast for dinner, French toast or waffles, and probably about a month and a half into this, the captain's like, we're not having freaking breakfast for dinner again, but the guys were always like all about it. Make me some Mickey Mouse pancakes, but eventually they're not going to let you keep doing that, right?
Yeah.
Knowing how to cook, and the other big one is like my house. We have 7, so it's like I don't know how to cook for 7 people. That's always the hardest part.
Yeah, that's definitely hard. Yeah, we have 11 at mine right now, and so it's every meal you cook is like cooking a Thanksgiving dinner. It's huge. It's like, and then trying to get the proportions, like I don't know. It is definitely stressful. But you learn and you do your thing. And
yeah,
I think hopefully everybody's understanding in the beginning. But if you could come in there and like nail something, oh man, it's the best for sure. We've had many times where people come in and try like new dishes and they don't turn out good, and old salty guys would stand up, plate and everything, and just right in the trash can.
Right.
Yeah, it's brutal.
Yeah.
It's brutal.
Yeah, I've heard that in fire stations plenty of times. Like, experiment at home. Don't bring us a brand new meal you've never cooked before. And
we had one ambulance operator the other day. I was like, "Oh, is this your first time cooking in the fire station?" He's a brand new guy. He goes, "Oh, yes, sir." And I go, "Is this your first meal you've ever cooked?" Like just joking around. He's like, "Yes, sir. First time I've ever cooked anything." And I was like, "Oh no, like." All right, like let's do this, but it turned out to be pretty good. So
that's crazy, and prep is everything. Like, just last week we actually had lasagna, and this probationary firefighter did it right. Like literally, like made the lasagna, already had it all done, and it was in a casserole dish in the refrigerator. So it's like, hey, when 5 o'clock rolls around, pop it in the oven for an hour, it'll be done. But then on the other side, you've seen literally rookies trying to at 5 o'clock start preparing a lasagna. Like, no, you can't do that. Right. Yeah. So preparation, you talk about rice cookers, like crock pots, like you learn how to like cook at a busy house where it just cooks itself for sure.
For sure. I mean, there's some times where you can't get to it, and I talk about like it's still kind of the probationary person's responsibility to get it on the table. I mean, it sounds I feel kind of weird saying that, but it's kind of the truth. Like it rolls downhill, right? So if nobody else does it, then you should jump on. And that kind of goes for everything,
Yeah.
But for chow, that seems like something that most people are pretty passionate about. So that's a good way to get on the good side. Like, but if you're out, busy day, and everybody's like, "Hey, what do you want to do? What's for chow today?" And you're like, "Well, we can just I always laid it out. Well, we can cook, but it won't be ready till 12:45 or 1 o'clock, or we can go to, just start naming things." Because typically what happens is everybody goes like, "Oh, I don't care. You pick. I don't care," unless somebody's really feeling something. but it's kind of, I always took it as my responsibility to be like, okay, well, we're gonna be driving, we're gonna be driving by the sandwich shop you like, Cap, or we've got like, we can do Mexican, Chinese, like just lay it out there, like. But it's kind of good to have a plan, obviously, for everything. But
well, Del Taco always works for me, so I don't see what the problem is. And the funny thing about it too is like, you have to like understand, like, they're gonna expect you to make dinner until they take it from you. We play cards pretty normal for dinner, and for like the first month and a half, the rookie is like throwing his hands of cards away, like trying to like lose on purpose,
Yes.
But eventually it's like, okay, no more throwing your hand away today. We're playing. And if the captain's got to make dinner, then the captain's got to make dinner.
Yeah,
You're not
absolutely.
making it today unless you lose at cards. But the dinner table, making a good meal, that's the biggest way for you to break into being part of the crew. That's when those conversations are occurring, and hopefully they've already done the thing like, hey, Joey, what are you all about? Or where did you work here before this? Where did you go to school? Well, what's up with your parents? Or are you married? Do you have a girlfriend or whatever? And it's also, you got to remember as that probationary firefighter to like ask those types of questions of your crew as well, because that's how you get to be part of the crew. Like, hey, Cap, how long have you worked here? Ask those questions and start. But breaking bread with your crew over a meal, that's the biggest part of really gaining your foot in there, right?
Yeah, we'll play like shoot hoops for dishes to see who has to clean up, and like you said, throwing your cards away, that the rookie always airballs it. So we had to make a rule that if you airball it, and it has to be like a legit, like you're just trying to throw the game, then we'll force you to go sit in the brown chair and eat ice cream. And they've gotten really good at hitting the rim. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, I can hit the rim, just it can't go in. Yeah.
There's a couple times where we've actually like drug them in there, and the whole crew will set them in there and like feed them ice cream. You've never seen somebody more uncomfortable.
We play frisbee golf at my station, which is always a lot of fun. It's a good time. But so the ice cream thing, that brings us to dessert. Always huge. Your recipe for the June bugs is cool in there. You got a couple recipes. But I can't go wrong with ice cream. I mean, I literally have a show called Firefighters and Fire Trucks Getting Ice Cream, so I get that. But one of the things that you brought up is like being prepared to like buy ice cream. Going to Baskin Robbins. Don't bring in the cheap ice cream, stuff like that. One of the things I want to throw out there is a rookie tip. And you kind of talk about like paying up if you're in the paper or you forget a piece of equipment on scene. Mm-hmm. I always try to make sure that my probationary firefighters, not only do they have sticker badges in one pocket, but the other thing that you always want to carry on you is like a Starbucks gift card or an In-N-Out gift card or some type of thing like that. Like, we left a monitor on scene the other day that the police department brought it back to the station. And wow. I dug in there and I grabbed an In-N-Out gift card and I gave it to PD, and I basically told the firefighter, like, hey, you owe me a new In-N-Out gift card to replace that one. But
that's good. I love that.
Something like that you can give to the PD or give to somebody like, that's not the normal firefighter in-house stuff that you can do. And they're my turnouts. That's not in my wallet. I purposely keep those in my turnout pants. So if we get a 2:00 in the morning run and we're out and about, it's like, well, In-N-Out's open. Let's go hit that. I don't have to have my wallet on me.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Yeah, and it's not just good for rookies; it's good for captains too, to keep some of those in your pocket.
Yeah.
You come back at 2:00 in the morning, they're all pissed off about being awake. It's like, don't worry, I'm taking you to Starbucks. I got it. But yeah, I mean, dessert definitely.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like currency in the firehouse, right? Like you mess up, pay for it with ice cream. You leave something, you pay for it. First time, like celebration type stuff, pay for it with pus. We call it pus, but yeah.
Right.
And then like work overtime. It's just kind of like a thank you. I mean, you don't have to thank them for working overtime, but it's like it's just good nature. It's good artists. So the funny thing about that overtime one in my department is like probably 20 years ago, it was $5 for an overtime. It's still $5 for an overtime. Like that one hasn't increased with inflation at all. So we might have to revisit that. Stuff's
Right.
getting expensive out there.
Yeah. Well, we'd always just, if you're on overtime, you buy the ice cream when we're out shopping or whatever.
Yeah.
You got to do it. So, yeah. Well, Chow, that was the important one. And then obviously emergency response, the last one that you chunked into. That's what it's all going to come down to, right?
That's
Can
what it's
you
all
actually
about.
do the job?
That's why we're here. Yeah, we always just say like, be like a fox, ears up, head down, like just absorbing all your information and learn from experience. You don't have any experience, everybody else does. So just suck it in and hold on to what you can. And before long, you'll be off probation. You'll be one of the people, with all the experience passing it down. So just mentor. I always believe in giving back to, where, the people doing for others what other people did for me. So, mentoring people, trying to give back, like that. I mean, that's why I took over that program and kind of how this whole thing started. I've never been into it for anything other than just trying to help out. That's where it all comes from. That's what it's all about, and I really believe in doing that. And so that's kind of why I'm here talking to you.
Well, I've supported it from the beginning. I think this is how many years have I bought that book for Christmas presents for all my new AOs here? So just got another dozen from you, and I keep trying to push it out.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Definitely.
Yeah, man. Well, it's good stuff. I'm glad you wrote it, and I think it can help a lot of company officers. That's why I chose this one for December book club. Like I said, hopefully, other guys are buying it for Christmas for their crews and sending that out, and it'll be good stuff.
Yeah. Very cool.
Yeah. Well, thanks for being on this month, Renick. I appreciate it. All right, man. And we'll see you sooner or later, Red Helmet training again down the line.
Yeah, I'll be there. Well, I don't have anything scheduled, but I'm sure I'll see you there soon.
Yeah. Well, good times, man. Merry Christmas, and we'll see you later on.
Merry Christmas. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye.